hype.
R Stone, $20. Time to address the elephant in the room. As Lions fans, do we regret the move?
Oh my God!
To move down and take Jahmyr Gibbs instead of Jalen Carter. I do not.
Oh my God!
I do not.
I talked about it yesterday with my friend.
I
at the
do
game.
not.
We're watching the game. I talked about it. By the way, Dr. Pierce was at that game. He sent me a video.
Really?
He went to the Philly game. That guy he's something. He's a home wrecker.
Who was pissed? Here's my biggest reason why I stood by that. And even then I said, yo, look, I love the Gibbs pick. I said, I see what he's done. I said, but I'm never coming off that you should have drafted Jalen Carter 6. Here's why. Because everybody said, oh, but we were able to do this. You still would have got 3 players. Jalen Carter is worth 2. You would have had him at 6. You could have got Gibbs at 22. And you could have got Brian Branch with your 3rd round pick. Or Sam Laporta. Yeah. You still would have got 3 out of 4. That is my biggest argument. Jalen Carter shut it down for 2 weeks in a row in the playoffs. 3. Because they had to play all 3 weeks. Because we got to buy.
He's a kid.
And he's 2 years in.
He's a kid.
And yes, he's playing with great defensive players around him.
He made
so
it.
what? He is the focal point of that defense. You could have had 3 players. Pick which 3 you want. You could have had Carter first, and Gibbs and Branch, or Gibbs and Laporta, or Laporta and Gibbs. You take your pick. That's why I was so mad about it. Not that they didn't draft him. You could have got all 3.
Still a great draft, but that's a big but. And he has a big
because when people the reason why I'm hyped is when people make the argument, they say, oh, and people want us to draft Jalen Carter, like you couldn't have gotten 2 other ones. That's the only problem. You make it seem like you couldn't have had a great draft if you would have drafted him, Chase. You still could have drafted him and gotten that, Chase.
Yeah, I mean, we could have possibly taken Jalen Carter first, and then instead of trading up to draft Jack Campbell, we could have traded up to draft Jahmyr Gibbs in the way you're talking about, where you could have had your cake and eat it too in that sense.
Yeah,
excellent.
It is, if you knew now, if you knew then, but yeah, and maybe you did. It just one off.
Yeah.
And again, I accept that I'm in the minority in this room. The Lions' identity is their offense. They took Penei Sewell over Micah Parsons. They took Jahmyr Gibbs over Jalen Carter. That is who this team is. Yeah. And I am okay with it.
Yeah.
It is, I'm okay with it. Because Gibbs, to me, outside of Saquon Barkley, there's not another back in the league outside of Saquon Barkley that I would rather have than Jahmyr Gibbs.
Me too.
And so
it's
it's really, I'd rather even have Gibbs more than Henry because of how versatile he is, and that's me. Maybe I could be totally wrong about that, but
they're all pretty damn good.
I mean, could you see Jalen Carter wear a gold jacket? Absolutely.
I think for me, where it is, it's just like this. It's remember when we were talking about Micah and I still stand on this. Even though Penei has been outstanding, I still would have drafted Micah Parsons. I still think he was a better player. I don't feel like getting into it with you guys. It just is what it is.
Mass would have too.
But like Jalen Carter can wreck a game. He can wreck a game. Jahmyr Gibbs still had a good game. They lost. How many good games has Jahmyr had in the last 2 years and still lost? If Jalen Carter has a good game, the game's over. And I think that's the biggest determinant for me. Jahmyr Gibbs has a great game, it's still a chance you could lose. If Carter has a great game, the game was over in the second quarter probably. I think that's the biggest thing.
One of the things too I was thinking about with Carter's amazing.
Oh my God.
Was just like, how rare is it? And remember when kind of making fun of like Philadelphia, taking all those Georgia defenders. Their whole team essentially is Georgia defensive players.
They're a college all-star team.
And they're back in the Super Bowl in 2 years.
Well, that's the point.
The Kobe Dean didn't play.
Right.
He was their leading tackler.
It's like, how good was that Georgia defense? Nolan Smith.
They put out Trayvon Walker. They put out the list of kind of like the what was it? The best teams in the modern era. You know how they always do, where it's like the 2001 Miami team. It's like the USC teams of 04. It's the Texas team. They had that Georgia team that he was on, 22-23. They had like 5th or 4th. And Maz and Ryan, I'm like, 5th or 4th? I'm like, how can you put him over the Alabama team from 2012? How can you put him over the Joe Burrow team? And then to your point, you start to pay attention to all the defensive players that have been drafted just in the last 2 years. In the first round, forget the second round, the first round, then the second round. Yeah, like that Georgia team was real.
Can we say give Howie Roseman his flowers?
Yeah, we thought we were going to beat them.
He's the equal to Brad Holmes, maybe even a little bit better. He's something. And you know what?
Howie's better.
Their coach, Nick Sirianni, say what you want about him, and I've made fun of him. The players love him. The fans love him. And the guy's been to 2 Super Bowls and a couple of NFC championship games. He's done nothing wrong. The only thing, he might have lost the team last year, but there's a lot of friction on that team. And it all starts with these receivers and your quarterback. They got something going there, yet they're still so good, talented, that they're back where they were 2 years ago.
Maz,
amazing.
I'm sorry. I thought you were done.
Amazing.
I was just gonna say, I think you're right. Howie Roseman, obviously, he's always gotten credit. He's always been viewed as among the league best, if not the best GM in the league.
Who's better?
I think Nick Sirianni deserves a lot of credit.
Hell
and
yeah.
I have been so critical of this
Trying to fire
guy
him for 2 years.
I seriously, I said he was going to be their downfall. The only reason Philadelphia is not going to make it to the Super Bowl is because their coach is the dummy. He's not a dummy. And you don't get to 2 Super Bowls in 3 years, and if you're a dummy, the Lions can't get to back-to-back NFC Championship games. It is unbelievably difficult to do what the Eagles have done, and Sirianni deserves a crap ton of credit.
For whatever you want to say about the Eagles, they're boring, they're this, and they can't win because he doesn't throw for that, and blah, blah, blah. There's a very simple formula with the Eagles. Their defense is the best in the league. That defensive line is amazing. They don't even have to blitz. All they got to do is rush 4 up front. They still have amazing defenders now in the back end. They reloaded, essentially, with Cooper DeJean as well as Quinyon Mitchell, who got injured. That defense is stacked. On offense, they got the best offensive line in football. Statistically, whatever you want to say about the Lions and Penei Sewell.
And they lost Kelsey.
Guess what? Lane Johnson didn't give up 1 sack this season. Donut. Penei gave up 4. They got the best left tackle based on stats. Their center, who's gone. They had backup. Landon Dickerson came in and thugged it out. Their offensive line is amazing. They beat you into submission just like the Lions do when they're cooking with grease. And their quarterback, for whatever you want to say about Jalen Hurts, he can't throw down the field, which actually he's great at. He's short that he can't throw. He can't throw. He's going to be the crutch. What he did at Alabama. We got to stop talking about what happened in college. We're focused on now. He slides. He gets all that he can. He slides. He's smart. He does not turn the ball over. They're very content with his 143 or his 135. It's us that wants him to throw for 300.
He looked healthy yesterday, too.
It's us 100%. And it started with that run 2 weeks ago.
Yep.
Then look at the first touchdown of the game. We want him to throw for 330 like he did in the Super Bowl. That's not how they win. That's not how they win. And they figured it out, and they've stayed the course, and it's working for them. Somebody asked me, did I think they had a shot to win the Super Bowl? I said, you'd be a fool to think they didn't.
You bet.
You would be a fool. I don't care what you believe. You would be a fool to think that they don't have as good of a chance as anybody to beat the Chiefs.
I'm taking them.
Dante 151. If the Bengals drafted Penei Sewell instead of Jamar Chase, who do you think the Lions would have drafted at 7? I do believe they would have drafted Jamar Chase then. After that, if you go back and think of their wide receivers, and you probably wouldn't have Amon-Ra. If you go back and was that the same draft?
Next draft.
Or the next draft. Okay, you're right about that, Bray. If you go back, think of who their wide receivers were: Mike Williams and Brashad Perryman.
Yeah.
You know, they both got cut. They had no wide receivers.
Quintez Cephas got picked up in that draft, the 2020 draft.
I believe they would have probably gotten
Chase
the
or
wide
Parsons.
receiver. Yeah.
I want to ask you guys a question. I think we can maybe start it over after the break. But how about this? Let's say the Lions played Philly yesterday.
That's what we're going to do.
What's going on
Do you
there?
think they would have
You'll
beat
hear
him?
from Schefter
We'll
himself. But
get
first,
to
they had
there
a busy
next. But
weekend.
first,
Absolutely.
a message
All
from the Lions.
Sorry, guys, my
That's
bad.
all right. And Philadelphia Eagles. Who would have won that game yesterday? I hate the hypotheticals because you basically saw the Lions play their worst game of the season, and you're comparing that with the Philadelphia Eagles, who played probably their best game of the season. And so automatically you're like, yeah, Philadelphia would have won that game. I'm not so sure of it. We'll never know one way or the other. We will never know, and that's the hard part. But yeah, I do believe the Detroit Lions would have beaten anybody in this league if they played their best game.
Ray?
Well, first of all, I'm gonna let you go. I'm still stewing, but
I'll go.
what you said if they play their best game, like so therein lies my question. Are you comparing the Detroit Lions from 2 weeks ago? Or are you comparing them at full strength against this Eagles team at full strength?
No, like I'm like the team that played against Minnesota, I think would win this game. Like if they play against Minnesota,
right,
like that, yeah, I think the Lions are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Okay, the Lions, if they can get 2 stops,
yeah,
and maybe a turnover, they're gonna beat you.
Let's do
Their
this.
offense is so great.
Yeah.
They just need 2 stops, and they got those 2 stops against Washington. By the way,
Washington
they
blew
just
up
turned
one play.
they
on
just
their
turned
own.
it all over 5 times.
Let's play it like you should play it. Could the Detroit Lions, let's say they would have beat the Commanders as currently staffed, could they have come back and beat this Eagles team the following week? And the answer is no. No, they wouldn't have beat this team because of what the defense was. The defense was in shambles, and you're going against a team that's at full strength. The best running back in the game, the best offensive line in the game. They got 2 of the best wide receivers in the game who are very healthy right now. Dallas Goedert put on a show against the Commanders. Like, that offense is in full. They're 100% healthy. I mean, minus some injuries on defense against our Lions, our Lions defense that we saw struggle at the end of the year. Even with Anzalone, they struggled against the Commanders. Like, no, they would have not beat this Eagles team based on how they played. Even if they would have won the Commanders game, they wouldn't beat this team because of the defense. More of the Lions teams that they beat this year and put the brakes to and added 20 points or double-digit wins and things like that, they're teams that weren't that good. They're teams that didn't really press them, so they played and controlled the whole game. Like, that wouldn't have been the case. This defense is better than any defense in the league, and at this current time, their defense is better than the Lions' offense of how it's been playing. So I think the Eagles would have won that game regardless, and then they're not turning the ball over on offense. Like, Jalen Hurts isn't turning it over. Saquon is starting and finishing games. Gainwell is coming in, making plays. Devontae Smith is still a hidden weapon. So I think the Eagles would have won just based off this playoffs. If we want to go to the beginning of the season, then
no, we're not going to go to the beginning of the season. We're going to go to
right now. Eagles would have won.
Once Amik Robertson went down, that was it for that defense. That dam broke.
I forgot
they
about
had
that.
Nothing left. Nothing. So you would have needed 40-plus points to win that game. Because they gave up 55 yesterday, but that's against Washington. Their defense is not that. They're not stopping that Eagle, as you saw. But the Lions, as they finished this season, I said, and I'll stick to this, last year against the Niners, to me, was a worse loss because that's how close they were. And they were on the up.
Yeah.
They were on the up. This Lions team was on the down. Even though they hit 15 wins, they put everything in to having to beat Minnesota to win just to get a week off. And I believe they shot it. That was it. That was as good as they were going to play. And then Amik Robertson went down, and then that was it. There's nothing else Aaron Glenn could have done. How are they going to stop Saquon? How are they going to stop Jalen Hurts from running all over them?
Yeah.
He had 3 touchdowns on the ground yesterday. Another one in the air. They weren't. They weren't going to stop him. And the Lion offense, as good as it is, if they rush Goff like they rushed Daniels yesterday, Goff would have been going on a stretcher. He can't get out of his own way. Daniels at least ran away. Goff's done. And you rush him, it's over. So there's the proof in the pudding. If you rush Goff, it's over. He can't do anything else. So either the offensive line would have had to play an absolute perfect game to stop Jalen Carter and the rest of that defense from pulverizing Goff.
What?
There's no way they could have won as they finished the season. Last year, that was our year.
You know what I wish didn't happen, Ryan? I'm gonna turn it over to you. I wish the Lions did not beat the Vikings like they beat the Vikings in Week 18. Because that Vikings team, for whatever reason, did not show up. They got behind. They didn't show up.
It was the first 2 passes by Darnold. He missed Jefferson.
100%.
They win that game maybe if they get those touchdowns.
Okay, man.
Sorry.
But what happened
Not
was
a nightmare.
the final score was 31-9.
Yeah.
That was the final score. It was 31-9 and 31-10. That game gave the fans a false sense of what that Lions defense could do or what that Lions defense wasn't, it gave you a false sense. Like, oh man, and we did that to the Vikings. They got Jefferson, and they got Hockenson, and Sam Darnold, and his 4,200 yards, and Kevin O'Connell gave them a false sense, gave us a false sense of what that Lions defense really was. And I don't think we paid attention enough to what they were in the Buffalo Bills game, and the game before that, game after that, excuse me. I wish it wouldn't have happened that way.
Recency bias and 55 points makes it look like the Philadelphia Eagles offense has been this juggernaut all season long. In the last 8 weeks, notwithstanding the 55 against Washington, in their previous 8 games, the Philadelphia Eagles scored over 22 points one time. Over 22 points. Saquon Barkley, Jalen Hurts, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. They scored over 22 points one time.
How many times has Saquon Barkley been taken out the game in the start of the fourth quarter? Like, they scored enough points they need, just like the Chiefs. Chiefs hadn't scored 30 all season, but they needed 30 and they got it. The difference is we're not saying that their offense is a juggernaut, because it's not. It's not a juggernaut of an offense. You got juggernaut-style players on there, but what we're saying is their defense is so good. Like, that's the other thing. Like, the defenses that we play, the offenses that the Lions play, I'm trying to word it. The defense of the Eagles is so good that it makes the game that much harder, especially if you're getting an offense that's not going to turn the ball over. That's more so what I'm saying.
When you look at that game yesterday, 55 points, 4 turnovers, 28 points off of 4 turnovers. Let's just say for
a lot of field position stuff.
Let's just say no turnovers. And this is where it's. This is why I hate hypotheticals, because you
asked it.
No, I know, but I hate asked it as well.
It still scored 30 then.
It's 27-23.
Okay.
And that's not even giving Washington any more points.
Right.
So again, 4 turnovers in an NFL football game is just so.
2 in the red zone.
Yeah, if there were no turnovers in this game, it's 27-23, and you're not giving Washington any more points either.
And then the Lions won 30-10 against Washington the week prior. Then take the 5 interceptions.
Exactly.
It's
just.
I understand it, but what I'm trying to tell you guys is you have to pay attention. The Lions' defense has been this. Like, this wasn't something where all of a sudden the defense got bad because of the players that weren't there. We've watched that. How many times have we come up here after games? Oh, this player got hurt. That player got hurt. This player got hurt. Where we getting this guy from? Who was that even made the tackle? Like, at some point, you got to know that this isn't sustainable. So my thoughts is, if this is continuing to happen, which it did, Meek Robinson even went down. Now you got a bunch of who's who playing against this defense. Playing this offense at home that's not turning the ball over. So that's what I'm saying. Eagles are going to find ways on that defense that's bad, battered, and bruised.